I think to teach a man to hate himself is much more criminal than teaching him to hate someone else. And look at you. Who taught you to hate yourself?
What makes the so-called Negro unable to stand on his own two feet? He has no self-confidence. He has no confidence in his own race. Because the white man destroyed your and my past, destroyed our knowledge of our culture. And by having destroyed it, now we don't know we have any achievements, any accomplishments. And as long as you can be convinced that you never did anything, you can never do anything. This is why the white man, his little children, he tells them about George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, all these white heroes. But we are never taught about any black heroes. Only someone we're shown in history is my grandfather was picking cotton.
But outside the safety of the school grounds, students, especially young women in hijabs, have been met with verbal abuse.
People just yell out remarks, you know, like, go back to your country, but this is our country, and where do we go back to?
What's the point of doing that, first of all? How is that going to solve anything that's happening in the world, you know? I'm just a student trying to go home, living my life, getting through BCE. I don't need this added pressure.
A survey by the Australian Catholic University found more than 50% of Victorian high school students view Muslims as terrorists. 40% of students said Muslims were unclean, while almost 30% said they did not want to learn about Islam at school.
What we're seeing in our country is a clash of cultures.
For all US Muslims to carry a special ID card?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I think they should.
I think they should.
Why?
So if they come over here with a weapon or something, that way we know who they are.
After 9/11, unfortunately, things like that have to be, you know.
Do you think US Muslims should also wear a badge with the word Muslim on it?
I would say so. So you recognize them, you know.
Which Muslims should have a special security number tattooed on their arm? Only the evil Muslims? Only Arab Muslims? Or all Muslims?
I would say all of them.
all of them have a security number tattooed on their arm.
I think there should be something special, some special mark or something.
Maybe a computer chip?
Right, computer chip or something, that way they can't hide it.
Yeah.
Or it glows through their clothes or something.
Would you support proposals for Muslim to be converted to Christianity, converted to Judaism, or incarcerated until the war is over?
Incarcerate them till the war is over.
Convert some of them and incarcerate some of the others.
So incarcerate until the war is over?
No, incarcerate
forever.
Yeah.
Would you ever consider buying a Muslim deterrence spray, such as pork spray?
No, I carry pepper spray on me all the time.
I'd probably be more apt to want to buy a gun.
Well, it's the old joke. If you have a hammer, everything you see is a nail. You know?
The soldiers being trained are Kurds. The place, northern Iraq. The trainers are Israelis. Their governments denied this was happening, but now Newsnight has obtained the first pictures of it and spoken to an Israeli who took part.
Raise your hand if you're in the Mahdi militia. Let's see it. Who's in the militia? Who has militia ties? Which one of you are more loyal to the militia than to your own country? None of you. Bullshit.
One of the goals of this program is to give the Afghans more ways to accomplish their mission.
What is the replacement of the Khilafah around the world?
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أوحي إلي أنه استمع نفر من الجن فقالوا إنا سمعنا قرآنا عجبا يهدي إلى الرشد فآمنا به ولن نشرك بربنا أحدا وأنه تعالى جد ربنا ما اتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا وأنه كان يقول سفيهنا على الله شططا وأنا ظننا أن لن تقول الإنس والجن على الله كذبا وأنه كان رجال من الإنس يعوذون برجال من الجن فزادوهم رهقا.
And of course, many of the people who are into the New Age are into astral projection and in contact with these spirit beings, and there really are spirit beings out there. They refer to them as the Masters of Wisdom, or the Great White Brotherhood, or the Enlightened Ones, and they believe that they are guiding society. These are actually demonic forces and demonic beings, and of course they can materialize and disappear. The average individual says, oh, that can't be true. And yet it is true. And when you talk to the people who are dealing with this, they come in contact with this many times. They have accessed this other dimension, which is truly a demonic dimension. And of course, tragically, it's becoming increasingly apparent here in America as we turn our back on God, and we're not really a secular society. We've gone from being a Christian society to a secular society, and now a society dominated by the occult forces, of which are intent upon ruling the world.
If it's true that the Roriks were in contact with the spirit realm, is it then possible that these same powers could have somehow influenced the design of the dollar bill?
And I know some of this is review for people that have gone through this, but I still think for people that don't know, this is important to understand these things. This is a dollar bill, which is the now devalued dollar bill. And on the back of the dollar bill, there's a seal on this side. It's called the Great Seal of the United States. That's what it's called. It's their seal. Now behind the seal, this is actually what is behind the Great Seal of the United States, is a pyramid with one eye. Now, The one eye is the sun god, Re, which is where we get the word rays, sun rays. It is the sun god, same Mithraic character, and he shows up again and again. This is the Masonic god of the ray. If you look, you'll see the pyramid is built except for the top. It's built except for the top. The eye is suspended above the top. It hasn't come down yet. Because they believe until they've finished the Masonic project, which is the what they say on the bottom, Novus Ordo Seclorum, and then Annuetta Cheptis, he is pleased with our project. In other words, the God they believe in is pleased with our project. What is the project? This is the question. What is the project that this God is pleased with? The project is literally the secularization of the world. To completely strip the world from religious beliefs. This is the project, and that is why it is called Novus Ordo Seclorum, a new secular or worldly order. If you translate that into Arabic, it would be a Nizam al-Alami ad-Dunyawi, not al-Jadid. It would be a Dunyawi, the new temporal order, the new order of the world. And we know what dunya is in Arabic. Dunya has a negative connotation in Islam, unlike alam, which does not have a negative connotation. If you read the Quran, alam is not a negative connotation. Rabb al-Alameen, Allah is Lord of the Alameen. We are part of the alam. The alam is the passive form of alim. It's what is known. It is how we know al-alim. The world is how we know Allah. We don't know Allah through dunya. Dunya is the illusory nature of the world. It's the gharura, it's the aspect of the world that deludes you, thinking that you're permanent, thinking that you can transgress, thinking that you're independent from Allah. This is the dunya.
Zionists do not, as they claim, represent the Jewish people. They like to claim they represent the Jewish people, but they most certainly do not. Anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism. Authentic Orthodox Jews totally oppose Zionism. They sympathize entirely with the Palestinian cause, and they protest the wrongs that are done through it.
We want to say that whatever happens, if the Arabs will recognize the state of Israel, we as a Jewish people are forbidden to recognize even 1 inch of Jewish sovereignty. We are commanded in exile by God. We're not a nationalism. We are commanded by God that we're forbidden in exile to have even 1 inch of sovereignty, even if it will be handed to us.
وحرام على قرية أهلكناها أنهم لا يرجعون حتى إذا فتحت يأجوج ومأجوج وهم من كل حدب ينسلون واقترب الوعد الحق فإذا هي شاخصة أبصار الذين كفروا يا ويلنا قد كنا في غفلة من هذا بل كنا ظالمين.
The Saudi army of Abdulaziz ibn Saud conquered Mecca. And Abdulaziz and Sharif Hussein packed his suitcase and off he went. British took him away. And so Abdulaziz ibn Saud is now in control of Mecca and eventually Medina. It's a Saudi Wahhabi alliance. Does he claim the Khilafah for himself now? No. What he does is, as soon as he enters Mecca in 1924 October, Abdulaziz ibn Saud makes a proclamation, and they're going to hate me for revealing this to you.
The modern-day Kingdom of Saudi Arabia came into existence as a result of a rebellion against the Islamic Khilafah state. Britain sought to strike the Islamic State from within. Followers of the Wahhabi madhab by then had managed to establish an entity within the Islamic State, led by Muhammad ibn Saud and later by his son Abdulaziz. Britain supplied them with weapons and money, and they moved on a sectarian basis to seize the Islamic lands, which were under the authority of the Khilafah. They took up arms against the Khalifa and fought the Islamic armed forces, all the time goaded by the British. It was well known that Al-Saud were British agents. The huge arsenals and equipments which reached them via India and the monies to cover the war effort against the Khilafah were supplied by the British. They exploited the Wahhabi madhab with the aim of fighting the Islamic State and clashing with the other madhabs in order to incite sectarian wars with the Uthmani Khilafah. The followers of this madhab were unaware of this, but the Saudi Emir was fully aware. This is because the relationship was not between the British and Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, but between the British and Al-Saud. Al-Saud's family reward for playing the most important role in this rebellion was to be granted by the British the position of future rulers of Hijaz. They had so much trust and confidence in their British masters and were so arrogant of their possession that they called it Saudi on September the 23rd, 1933, the only state in the world to be named after a family. Contrary to popular Western myth, it is the Saudis that are dependent on the US and not the other way round. The relationship is one in which the Saudi regime has no leverage over the US, while the US exerts almost total control over the regime, with the power to remove the regime overtly or covertly.
When Israel becomes the ruling state in the world, then the Jews will say, the golden age has come again. The prophecy is being fulfilled, but they're being deceived in the grandest and most magnificent deception mankind has ever witnessed. No, this is not the golden age. You have been deceived by Al-Masih al-Dajjal.
And I realized it was so far removed from my actual experience abroad that people had to know, this is not who they are. This is not how they are.
There are an estimated 1.3 billion Muslims worldwide, and most are not Arabs. Here in the United States, while the Muslim contingent numbers an estimated 7 to 8 million, it's growing rapidly. 20,000 new converts each year, 4 times as many women as men.
In the Quran, it says that women were created independently of Adam, that Eve was an independent creation of God's. And so for a lot of white American women, that really appeals to their sensibilities of equality, and it's very liberating for them. Maybe I'll help you cook something.
Julia Roach converted to Islam after being introduced to the religion by her husband, Chris. They weren't married at the time. He is also an American.
When I found out he was Muslim, I told him, I believe, right away, I will never become a Muslim. I will never cover my head. I will never be this person. So don't ever ask me to be that person. And he never did.
But she did have lively discussions with him about religion. She was raised a Christian and said she converted after she was able to see past the stereotypes and learned about the values of Islam.
The concept of freedom and liberty of each individual person and the rights of each person, and that's all wrapped up in the theological teachings of Islam.
In the New Testament, Jesus made reference to the bronze serpent as a picture of his crucifixion. He said, "As Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have eternal life." Some believe that the serpent cross is the original inspiration for the American dollar sign today. While the image of the bronze serpent holds a very particular meaning for Christianity. David Oveson explains that Kabbalists and alchemists find an interesting parallel in the Hebrew gematria. The Hebrew word for the serpent of Moses is Nakash, which means the shining one. The numerical gematria for Nakash is 358. This is also the numerical equivalent for the Hebrew word Mashiach, or Messiah. Oveson claims that these numerical equivalents allowed magicians to draw a connection between the brazen or bronze serpent and the Messiah. But exactly what Messiah do they mean? The phrase e pluribus unum, or out of many, one, appears in a banner held in the mouth of the American eagle. The word one appears a total of 7 times on the dollar bill. Oveson writes, in magical numerology, the number 7 is regarded with a special veneration. Certain texts that deal with the meanings of numbers insist that 7 stands for the complete temple. The temple he refers to is the ancient temple of God, built by King Solomon in the city of Jerusalem. Oveson goes on to say that the concept of a complete temple is symbolized by the unfinished pyramid of the Great Seal, where the symbol of a Messiah figure is also shown with the all-seeing eye, representing the capstone that will one day complete the pyramid. In other words, when the Messiah emerges, then will the temple be complete. But just who this Messiah will be is the subject of intense debate, and the clues to his identity are said to be related to the temple itself.
وإذ قلنا للملائكة اسجدوا لآدم فسجدوا إلا إبليس كان من الجن ففسق عن أمر ربه أفتتخذونه وذريته أولياء من دوني وهم لكم عدو بئس للظالمين بدلا.
When a day which is like a week has come to an end, and we will know that because the water in the Sea of Galilee would have dried. That is the time when these events are now going to take place. The advent of Imam al-Mahdi.
For centuries, the Sea of Galilee has inspired believers the world over. The waters, the Bible tells us, Jesus walked on. The shores where he performed his miracles. A place of beauty, religion and legend. But today, on the brink of disaster.
The water should be above our heads. The tragedy is that we don't need to be Jesus Christ anymore to walk here on the Sea of Galilee.
Environmentalist Guidon Bromberg and I could walk the floor of the lake because its waters have retreated hundreds of yards.
Making the desert bloom is unsustainable, and the demise of the Sea of Galilee must send that message to Israeli politicians.
When the Sea of Galilee dries up, that's the time when Israel will no longer rule the world. I love this hadith. Guess why? Because George Bush would watch the Sea of Galilee going down. And Tony was his name? Yes. And Ariel was his name? Sharon. Yeah. And the Jews? They can watch the Sea of Galilee going down and drying up. And they can realize that the moment is coming.
This bay should be full of water right up to those rocks. The Sea of Galilee is so low it must be pumped uphill into the Jordan now, the river it should feed. Otherwise its baptism sites would dry up. But the Jordan doesn't flow much further from here. Just a few miles to the south, this is where the Jordan comes to an end. Its last few drops are drawn off by that pumping station over there for irrigation. Then there's this, Israel's dirty little secret. The Jordan, possibly the most famous river in the world, rises again as raw sewage being poured out of that drain. Israel's announced an emergency. A lineup of celebrities, including supermodel Bar Raffaelli. Their faces cracking to tell Israelis to save the Sea of Galilee. Israeli authorities deny mismanagement. Instead, they blame the weather.
Such a drought of 5 successive years, that's something we never met. And that's also something that statistically is really rare.
On the waters, boatmen who fish for tourists are deeply alarmed.
We used to use the first pier, and then the water level went down, so we built another one, and now another one.
Do you think it's going to get better?
We pray it will be better, and it will be. We trust God.
It'll need more than divine intervention. Scientists say if the Sea of Galilee sinks another metre or two, it could reach a point of no return, and this could be lost forever.
U.S. National Security Advisor Brzezinski flew to Pakistan to set about rallying resistance. He wanted to arm the Mujahideen without revealing America's role.
The Iraqis had already proved these tactics against Kurdish rebels, but their strategy failed to recognize that defensive armies could also move quickly into position. Away from the Kurdish mountains, large armies could become clear targets for Iranian heavy artillery.
This does not mean stationing U.S. ground forces in the Arabian Peninsula, but it does mean American participation in joint exercises involving both air and ground forces. It means maintaining a capable U.S. naval presence in the region. Israel and many of the Arab states have for the first time found themselves confronting the same aggressor. This principle must be elaborated to provide for Israel's security and recognition, and at the same time for legitimate Palestinian political rights. Now we can see a new world coming into view. A world in which there is the very real prospect of a new world order.
Saudi Arabian Foreign Minister Saud Al-Faisal on Friday said that his country has proposed to the United Nations to form an international body to fight terrorism across the globe.
Our close friend and ally Kuwait, we've had an important strategic dialogue.
هل تؤيد إعدام صدام حسين؟ 4787 88.6 من الشارع لا، 11.4 لا. ماذا تقول لهم؟ بس دقيقة
قبل ما يجاوب
إيه؟
أنا أريد أبدأ البرنامج أو الحلقة أدعو المشاهدين بأن نقرأ الفاتحة على روح الرئيس الشهيد صدام حسين. نحن هنا بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم على أحد. نحن هنا ندين رجل.
Well, let me just ask you this. If they did not have these weapons of mass destruction, though, granted, all of that is true, why then did they pose an immediate threat to us, to this country?
You and a few other critics are the only people I've heard use the phrase immediate threat. I didn't. The president didn't. And it's become kind of folklore that that's what's happened. The president went...
You're saying that nobody in the administration said that?
I can't speak for nobody, everybody in the administration, and say nobody said
that. The Vice President didn't say that?
If you have any citations, I'd like to see them.
We have one here that says, some have argued that this is you speaking, some have argued that the nuclear threat from Iraq is not imminent, that Saddam is at least 5 to 7 years away from having nuclear weapons. I would not be so certain. Close to imminent.
Well, I tried to be precise and I've tried to be accurate.
No terrorist state poses a greater or more immediate threat to the security of our people and the stability of the world than the regime of Saddam Hussein in Iraq.
No, these. I need these.
This violence was sparked by an incident involving this white car. Iraqi police say the car contained weapons and explosives and was driven by 2 undercover British servicemen dressed as Arabs. Iraqi police have issued these pictures of the men. The MOD's asked us not to identify them. They're accused of killing one Iraqi policeman and wounding another.
A policeman approached them and then one of these guys fired at him. Then the police managed to capture them. They refused to say what their mission was. They said they were British soldiers and to ask their commander about their mission.
Arriving in formal robes to a warm welcome, he told them that despite progress in Afghanistan since the end of Taliban rule, they still needed to tackle terrorism and poppy growing for drugs. That could only be done, he said, through cooperation with neighbouring Pakistan.
I don't think, ladies and gentlemen,
the number of foreign private military contractors in Pakistan has risen dramatically in the last few months. But do thousands and thousands of armed men on Pakistan's roads really add to security in the country? And we're now joined by our correspondent Alyona Minkowski, who's in Washington, D.C. Hello there, Alyona. So what can you tell us about this situation?
Thanks, Julia. Well, that's the question that people are asking is, can they actually give more security in the country? Because at this point, these private military contractors are becoming better known for stirring up trouble than actually doing any good.
We must root out terrorism and extremism.
Immediately following the blast, Iran's religious leaders blamed the U.S. for the attack.
What we can say without doubt about this issue is that the fingertips of America and Israel are definitely on this incident.
So don't be fighting each other over chicken feed. That's what you're doing.
Then in Sahih Muslim we are told, a Muslim ruler will die and there will be disagreement concerning succession. And then a man is going to come out of Makkah. His name will be my name and his father's name will be my father's name. Said the Prophet ﷺ, he'll have a broad forehead and a large nose, and he'll be known as Al-Mahdi. Goodbye! to bad rubbish. The British tried when Britain was the ruling state in the world, and the British failed. And then the Russians tried when they had the superpower, the Soviet Union. And after 12 years, the Russians failed. And guess who is trying now? Yes, the war in Khorasan has just begun, Mr. Bush. It has just begun. On that day, when Islam liberates Afghanistan, I believe it is that army which will be unstoppable until it reaches Jerusalem.
الشلاك يشوان سالد أمر لنا أن أنت مشيك
هو أنا تقسم برناش في بيمين خير تبقى أنا نشوي.
The message of Jesus Christ was a simple message. He said to his people when they asked him, "Oh, Rabbi, teach us how to pray." He said, "Our Father who art in heaven." He didn't say, "My Father who I'm with in heaven. Hallowed be, praise be thy name." Not my name and our name, but thy name. Thy kingdom come. Not my kingdom come, but thy kingdom come.
Dajjal will now attack. He's now in a day which is like our day. And so we see him, a Jew, a young man, powerful, built, curly hair. The Prophet ﷺ pointed his hands to the east 20 times. And he said he's going to come from the east. 20 times, said Muhammad ﷺ. You can come from the east. When he attacks, he's going to be riding on a donkey, which will travel as fast as the clouds, and we should have his hair stretched out wide. And east of Medina and Mecca is the Saudi Air Force Base, which is now also an American Air Force Base in Dhahran. As they attack Mecca and Medina, the angels defend Mecca and Medina. This is there in Sahih Muslim. And the attack is diverted to Damascus. And then the confrontation takes place. Dajjal is outside and the Imam is inside the masjid. And now history repeats itself. The Jews are rubbing their hands. We got them now. There's no escape. We got them. We have them in our sights now. As someone else was rubbing his hands, as his army was approaching them, and in front of them was the sea, and behind them is the army, and they're rubbing their hands. We got them now. Who was he? Fir'aun. And so history repeats itself. But at the last moment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to Musa alayhi salam, take your rod and strike the water. And then the divine intervention took place, the miracle. And the believers were saved. As the Jews are rubbing their hands, we've got them now, we've cornered them. At that last moment, history repeats itself. The son of Mary comes down with his hand resting on the wings of two angels.
ثم اتخذوا العجل من بعد ما جاءتهم البينات فعفونا عن ذلك وآتينا موسى سلطانا مبينا ورفعنا فوقهم الطور بميثاقهم وقلنا لهم ادخلوا الباب سجدا وقلنا لهم لا تعدوا في السبت وأخذنا منهم ميثاقا غليظا فبما نقضهم ميثاقهم وكفرهم بآيات الله وقتلهم الأنبياء بغير حق وقولهم قلوبنا غلف بل طبع الله عليها بكفرهم فلا يؤمنون إلا قليلا وبكفرهم وقولهم على مريم بهتانا عظيما وقولهم إنا قتلنا المسيح عيسى ابن مريم رسول الله وما قتلوه وما صلبوه ولكن شبه لهم وإن الذين اختلفوا فيه لفي شك منه ما لهم به من علم إلا اتباع الظن وما قتلوه يقينا
Twice a day he cries to the world, there is but one God, and he is Allah. Do you deny that there is a Christian God?
The muezzin does this 5 times a day.
5 times, and I only heard him twice.
Well, you were fortunate to hear him twice. But he does this 5 times a day, and the same God that he says that he expresses the existence of is the God that the Christians profess to believe in themselves, and the God that the Jews believe in. One God, the creator of the universe. The Muslims believe in the God that created the universe, and I think the Christians do, and the Jews do. Now, as long as all of them are talking about the creator, the Jews may call him Jehovah, and Christians may have another name for him. Those who are Arabic speaking refer to him as Allah. Well, we believe in the same God.
You go to Nigeria, which is, if not the most corrupt nation in Africa, and it is, it could be the most corrupt nation in the world, Mr. Farrakhan. Oh, and now, Mr. Wallace. It is the most corrupt nation that I have ever covered. I've been there 25 years ago, and I've been there as recently as last year.
Fine. So what? 35 years old. That's what that nation is. Now here's America, 226 years old. You love democracy, but there in Africa, you're trying to force these people into a system of government that you just have accepted. 30 years ago, black folk got the right to vote. You're not in any moral position to tell anybody how corrupt they are. You should be quiet and let those of us who know our people go there and help them get out of that condition. But America should keep her mouth shut. Wherever there's a corrupt regime, as much hell as America has raised on the earth. No, I will not allow America, or you, Mr. Wallace, to condemn them as the most corrupt nation on earth when you have spilled the blood of human beings. Has Nigeria dropped an atomic bomb and killed people in Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Have they killed off millions of Native Americans? How dare you put yourself in that position as a moral judge? I think you should keep quiet, because with that much blood on America's hands, you have no right to speak. I will speak.
This is the Jewish way here. This is the Jewish way. This is the Jewish way. This is authentic Judaism, dear viewers. Anyone who tells you to the contrary is a liar and a fraud and a curse upon him. Hey! Hey!
We're gonna kill you and the Palestinians. You Nazis.
This nation was founded by men of many nations and backgrounds. It was founded on the principle that all men are created equal, and that the rights of every man are diminished when the rights of one man are threatened. Today we are committed to a worldwide struggle to promote and protect the rights of all who wish to be free.